Okay, almost done. So the future is looking rosy, mostly. Right? This is a great space, very interesting capabilities. I'll end off with a couple of book recommendations and a little bit of a warning. The first book is called The Turing Test, which is a story about a rogue AI that takes over the utility infrastructure and obviously causes tons of havoc. And the second story is called The Fear Index, which is a story that actually got off Bloomberg, which is a great read. And it's about a rogue AI that takes over a hedge fund and essentially creates a bunch of global instability. And I mean, these are fun to read, but I always see sci-fi as a kind of prediction of the future. And when it comes to the world of AI, and the reason why we've set up this think tank and we're starting to pull people together to create a set of guidelines and a framework for the safe and confident implementation of this kind of technology. So I believe that there are three potential risks with the technology. The first one is lack of transparency. So back in the old days, when we were just coding, hard coding, you could have 10,000 or 100,000 or a million lines of code, but we could, million lines of code, excuse me. But we had a process called code review, where one developer would go and read another developer's code and make sure that they understood, for compliance purposes and just for good coding techniques, standards and everything, whether it actually worked. And it was really clear. The line of code says what it says or it doesn't, right? These days, when you look at technologies like that neural network, essentially that technology it's a massive matrix. Think about a 3D spreadsheet, where instead of having with millions of columns and millions of rows, and it's 50 or 100 or thousands of spreadsheets deep. It's this massive cube of data, which we humans are not able to understand. So the lack of transparency in these models is a concern because we don't really get them. We can't understand them. And they're not always exactly reproducible. One of the methodologies for building these kind of algorithms is, for instance, a genetic algorithm, which uses a random seed, uses a random starting point. So you could take the exact same input data and throw it into these models and come up with a close but slightly different outcome. So I believe that lack of transparency into this more advanced technology is a potential risk. The second thing is dependence. Okay, as we see AI, and I'm the biggest proponent of putting AI into systems and into our daily lives, but as we see AI become more heavily used, there's the risk that we become overly dependent. Do I think the robots are going to come out, or the AI is going to create robots and come out with machine guns and start shooting us all? Really, I'm not less worried about that. But I am worried about some kind of machine learning algorithm which could make poor decisions on our behalf, like for instance shutting down all the MRI systems in Boston for an hour, or changing all the traffic light to green for 20 seconds. Right? Think of the havoc of becoming dependent on these systems, what that could create. And then the third piece is infiltration. Right? So I think in the future, this technology is so powerful, and as we saw from those economics earlier, the ability to deliver capabilities, I think the winners of economic and business and corporate and even potential political battles will be driven by who has the strongest and the best AI. And of course, the bad guys are after this as well. And the ability to infiltrate our systems and sway them and modify them is a real risk. And cybersecurity and that whole mechanism is obviously really important. So those three things I think we need to safeguard against. And by putting in a process and guidelines, working with folks we're working with very senior people in healthcare and financial services and academia who've been around this for a long time and have implemented new kinds of technology and see a safe way to implement this so that everybody can get a confidence level around this. I believe that's going to be the way forward. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.